This video is a collaboration with our new YouTube channel, A Brief History of Soccer. In the spring of 2006, the Tottenham Hotspur squad gathered in a London hotel dining room. The air hummed with pre-match tension as they consumed a carefully planned meal. Hours later, that tension twisted into something far more visceral. 10 players were seized by violent cramps, their bodies rejecting the food with relentless vomiting and diarrhea. The team doctor's hotel room became a makeshift clinic, the floor littered with discarded water bottles and towels. Players slumped against walls, pale and sweating, as medical staff scrambled. With a crucial Premier League match against West Ham United mere hours away, a game that would decide Champions League qualification, the club faced an impossible choice. They had to field a team. That evening at Upton Park, the affected players took the pitch while severely dehydrated and weak. Every sprint was an act of will, every tackle a gamble against their failing bodies. The match ended in a 2-1 defeat, a result many attributed to the mass illness. Immediately, questions swirled about the hotel kitchen, launching an investigation into what had poisoned their pre-game ritual. While Tottenham's ordeal in London was attributed to food, the suspicion of deliberate sabotage would surface again 4 years earlier on football's grandest stage. In the sweltering heat of Turin's Stadio delle Alpi during the 1990 World Cup, Argentina and Brazil clashed in a tense round of 16 match. The rivalry was already electric, but something else was brewing on the sidelines. Midway through the second half, with the score locked at 0-0, Brazilian defender Branco jogged toward the touchline, his throat parched. An Argentine physiotherapist extended a water bottle toward him. Branco took it without hesitation, gulping down the cool liquid. He returned to the pitch, but within minutes, a strange fog began to cloud his senses. His legs felt heavy, disconnected from his commands. Dizziness washed over him, distorting his spatial awareness. Branco later described a profound disorientation, as if he were moving through mud. He managed to finish the match, which Argentina won 1-0. But the defender would soon make a stunning claim. That drink, he alleged, had been laced with a sedative. The suspicion didn't end with Branco's water bottle. Across Europe, a pattern emerged. Before critical matches, entire squads would suddenly fall ill. In hotel dining rooms, players would push away plates of chicken, their stomachs already cramping. Club doctors would later point to the pre-match meal as the culprit, filing official complaints about contaminated food that had sabotaged their chances. The reports piled up in league offices. A German team, facing relegation, blamed a mysterious gastrointestinal outbreak on a suspect hotel buffet. A Spanish club, competing for a continental title, pointed fingers at a jug of orange juice. The symptoms were always the same: violent nausea, debilitating weakness, and a team forced to compete at a fraction of its strength. No single culprit was ever caught, yet the sheer repetition of these incidents, always before high-stakes games, always traced back to a team's last meal, cemented a deep-seated belief. For managers and fans, it became an article of faith. The chicken was off, the water was spiked. The perfect untraceable crime had found its home in football. Back in the lab, a team doctor slid a petri dish under a microscope. The sample, taken from an ill player, held the only physical evidence. But as the lens focused, it revealed not a smoking gun, but a common culprit, a strain of norovirus, identical to those that sweep through hotels and cruise ships every year. The symptoms, violent vomiting, crippling cramps, were a perfect match. Medical experts pointed to the buffet line: poorly chilled mayonnaise, chicken left at room temperature, a single contaminated handler. Any could breed salmonella or E. coli. These bacteria unleash toxins that ravage the gut, creating the same clinical picture as a deliberate act. Even the intense stress of a high-stakes match could trigger a severe psychosomatic reaction, mimicking illness. Without a unique chemical signature, proof dissolved into probability. The timeline of symptoms after a team meal pointed to food poisoning, yet it couldn't distinguish between negligence and malice. This diagnostic grey area became the perfect breeding ground for doubt, where every stomachache could be reinterpreted as part of a darker plot. While teams had long feared external sabotage, a more insidious chemical threat was brewing from within. At Juventus's training complex in Turin, the medical room became a laboratory. Throughout the late 1990s, club physicians maintained a meticulous regimen, administering injections and prescriptions that went far beyond treating injuries. The substances they used, including the blood-boosting hormone EPO, were designed not to heal but to enhance. This was not a shadowy operation. It was systematic, clinical, and documented. Players received their doses as part of a structured program, blurring the line between legitimate therapy and pharmaceutical engineering. The goal was to increase red blood cell counts, pushing oxygen through fatigued muscles to gain a critical edge in stamina and recovery. What looked like advanced sports medicine was, in fact, a calculated doping regime. The scheme unraveled when Italian authorities launched a sweeping investigation. Prosecutors seized medical records that laid bare the organized program, leading to trials and convictions. The scandal exposed how the pursuit of victory had institutionalized chemical manipulation, transforming the doctor's bag from a kit of cures into a toolbox for artificial advantage, all under the guise of care. The systematic doping at Juventus revealed how chemicals could be weaponized from within a team. But the fear of external sabotage created a different kind of paralysis. In the quiet of a locker room after that story broke, a player sat alone, his gaze fixed on a plastic water bottle left on the bench. His fingers tightened around it, but he did not drink. The rumour had spread through the training ground like a gas. Whispers that a rival staff had tampered with their supplies. No one felt sick, yet the doubt had already taken root. Every sip of water became a calculated risk, every cramp a potential symptom. The psychological toxin worked faster than any bacteria, eroding focus and seeding distrust among teammates who now eyed each other's snacks with silent suspicion. On the pitch, this mental burden manifested as hesitation. A midfielder, usually decisive, second-guessed a run, his mind flashing to the bottle he'd abandoned. The fear of being weakened was as debilitating as any actual poison. It demonstrated that in football's high-stakes theatre, the mere suggestion of contamination could become a self-fulfilling prophecy, sabotaging performance from the inside out with nothing more potent than an idea. The suspicion of sabotage was a persistent shadow, but sometimes reality delivered its own devastating blow without any malice at all. In late October of 2018, the players of FC Rostov gathered at their training base in southern Russia. They were preparing for a crucial Premier League match against FC Ural, a game that could define their season. The air in the dining hall was thick with the usual pre-match focus, but an invisible threat had already infiltrated their ranks. It began subtly, a dull cramp, a wave of nausea. Within hours, the entire squad was seized by violent gastrointestinal distress. Players doubled over in pain, their bodies racked by fever and dehydration. Team doctors, overwhelmed, confirmed acute intestinal infections. There was no time for theories. Ambulances were called. One by one, athletes were loaded onto stretchers and rushed to the local hospital, their match-day preparations replaced by intravenous drips and medical monitors. The league had no choice but to postpone the fixture. Health officials launched an investigation, tracing the outbreak to a norovirus, a highly contagious pathogen often spread in close quarters. It was a brutal lesson in biology, not betrayal. Yet, Even with this clear medical explanation, the event immediately fed the old, hungry narratives of conspiracy, proving how easily verified misfortune could be twisted into the sport's enduring myth of the perfect poison. While the Juventus doping investigation unfolded in courtrooms, a different trial was already reaching its verdict in the public square. Throughout the late 1990s, Italian newspaper front pages didn't just report the allegations, they amplified them into a deafening roar. Bold headlines like "Doping Inferno" and "Juve's Chemical Secrets" transformed complex medical testimony into a simple, damning narrative of systemic cheating. The story spread beyond sports pages, becoming a staple of evening news broadcasts and talk shows. Pundits dissected grainy photos of medical vials, while commentators spoke of a cancer at the heart of Italian football. This relentless media storm created a powerful image, that of a club so desperate for victory it would poison its own players with dangerous substances, a reputation that began to stick regardless of pending legal findings. For the public, the distinction between allegation and proof blurred. Every subsequent Juventus triumph was viewed by some through the lens of those headlines, the shadow of chemical advantage forever attached to their legacy. The media narrative had done its work, inflicting a lasting reputational toxin that no legal acquittal could ever fully neutralize. The media storms and hospitalizations of the past had reshaped the very infrastructure of the sport. By the 21st century, what was once handled by hotel staff became a matter of military-grade security. Teams travelling to tournaments now moved with their own culinary supply chains, sealed trucks, private chefs, and nutritionists who treated every meal like a controlled substance. At a major international tournament, the team nutritionist's gloved hands never left the coolers. He watched as each pre-portioned meal was vacuum-sealed, labelled, and loaded into a locked van under camera surveillance. Bottled water, sourced from a single verified spring, was counted and sealed with tamper-evident caps before leaving the team's own kitchen facility. This ritual of control extended to the hotel itself. The nutritionist personally escorted the transport to the team floor, overseeing the transfer into a dedicated, locked refrigerator. Every player received their meal from his hands alone. It was a silent daily protocol, a direct, professionalized answer to the old spectre of the doctored drink or the contaminated plate. As nutritionists sealed meal containers and teams traveled with their own water, the fear of contamination didn't vanish. It migrated. The battleground shifted from hotel kitchens to digital forums. Decades after the alleged incidents, fans still dissected every detail, their keyboards clicking late into the night as they debated grainy match footage and contradictory testimonies. On a glowing screen, a user posted a blurry photo from the 1990 World Cup, circling the water bottle Branco drank from. Another countered with a medical journal article about travellers' diarrhea. The argument cycled endlessly. Accusation, dismissal, renewed suspicion. No court could settle it. The evidence was always just out of reach, existing only in the space between what happened and what people believed happened. That enduring ambiguity was the toxin's true legacy. It required no physical proof, only the fertile ground of rivalry. The perfect football sabotage wasn't a vial of sedative or a plate of bad chicken. It was the lingering doubt, invisible and plausible, that could forever taint a victory, explain a defeat, and haunt the sport's highest stakes.